So, some potential caveats in my prediction of Joe Biden's basically walking to grab the mantle of the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. If you've been listening to my videos on this particular subject, I've been predicting that he will become the next Democratic nominee. I still feel like he's the most likely, but there's some potential real trouble spots. How real they are, I don't know yet. The last video I posted on the subject, as of right now, this hearing, there are three most likely nominees for Democratic President of the United States: Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden. Of those three, Joe Biden is by far the most electable. Now, I got a bit of a commentary from someone who told me, first thing he told me I don't buy, that Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren are more exciting Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are more exciting than Joe Biden. You know, if that's what passes for exciting in today's world, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, God help us all. Because they're not in any meaningful sense of the word exciting, except, yeah, I get that they're a lot more palatable to a certain segment of the progressive left of the Democratic Party. I fully and completely understand that they are, 150 times more the nominee of choice for a certain segment of the Democrats. I get that, but they're not in any meaningful sense of the word exciting to anybody in normal land. And furthermore, just on the exciting thing, I don't want an exciting politician personally. I think that that's a really overrated concept. I long for the days when I used to be bored by politicians, where we didn't pay attention to them. I like the idea of like a boring, dependable human being who you don't really have to think too much about. Put them in the position, and then you just sort of forget all about them. Once upon a time in the United States of America, that's how politics used to be on the ground floor. You kind of sort of paid attention to it, but it wasn't the same. That's a story for another day. The kid did go on to make a perfectly legitimate, rational argument for the candidacy of Bernie Sanders. And his argument was this: in the key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, of Ohio, Bernie Sanders can make a far more legitimate claim to be the populist economics. He can be, he can present himself as someone who has the back of the working man and is looking out for their economic interests, and his presentation will be far more authentic version than Joe Biden. Now, that's a perfectly decent, legitimate political argument. Matter of fact, if I were running Bernie's campaign, that's exactly what I tell him to focus on. I tell him to hammer home that message, that I am the true populist, I am the true friend of the working class, I am the true working class hero. I have your economic back, and I will help you. I'm against TPP, I'm against NAFTA, and I'm looking out for the working man, Joe Lunchpail. That's a great argument in those states. Bernie Sanders, though, has some downsides too, which I'll go into in other videos, and we don't fully understand them yet because he's never really been on the national stage. Yes, he ran against Hillary Clinton, but there's a big but here. Hillary Clinton, their campaign had all of this opposition research lined up to go against Bernie Sanders. And because Bernie Sanders was never actually a legitimate threat to unseat her from the nomination, they never released any of it. And there's miles of it. And it's really bad, really, really potentially damaging. And nobody's seen any of it yet. I've seen some of it. And it's really, 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 really bad. I mean, there's a lot of really weird stuff from Bernie Sanders' past that so far hasn't reached the national consciousness yet. Weird stuff. I've seen only a few of them, and the stuff I've seen could easily sink a campaign handled correctly. Easily. I mean, there's stuff of him without a shirt singing crazy songs in Russia with communists. It's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's only one, and I've only seen like 3 or 4 of these things. There's apparently about 100 of them. He's got a history that so far nobody knows, where he's gone to this crackpot dictator, praised this guy, hung out with this person, and there's a long history of it. Elizabeth Warren has stayed within the relative mainstream of the Democratic Party. Yes, she's progressive left, and yes, she's fully a member of the left wing of the Democratic Party, but she has never gone outside the bounds of mainstream politics. Bernie Sanders has, and he's gone outside often. And so far, nobody really knows about that because there's never been any huge opposition dump on Bernie Sanders because he hasn't, last time he wasn't a legitimate threat to win the nomination. He really wasn't. So they made a calculation. should we go after him with all 5 barrels, or should we hold back? And they held back. So there's a lot of stuff we don't know yet about Bernie Sanders, if he actually becomes a legitimate threat to unseat Joe Biden. As of right now, both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have the same problem. How do they grow their support with the other person still in the race? It's far more plausible that Elizabeth Warren does, and that Bernie Sanders just starts to sink. And the people who want to support, who are on the same page as Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, start to migrate towards Elizabeth Warren because they think she has a better chance of being the nominee. That's more plausible than any other configuration I can imagine. I don't see him growing his support organically. He seems to have a ceiling, and his ceiling seems to be pretty set. Yeah, he's got a floor and he's got committed supporters, but so far I don't see him ever crossing over from his committed base. When he ran against Hillary Clinton, that was a different thing. He had about roughly 30% of the vote. 17% were his hardcore core supporters that he still has. The other 13% was, he's not Hillary Clinton, therefore I support him. He's not Hillary Clinton. He had the I'm not Hillary Clinton vote locked up because he's the only one in the race who wasn't Hillary Clinton. So, what's the issue with Joe Biden? Well, it's potentially a really, really challenging one. His gaffes, while I still consider his gaffes relatively harmless, they are starting to add up and they may have a real political cost. The only real rationale for Joe Biden's candidacy is that of the people in the race, he's the most electable. Of the people who have the potential to get the nomination, he's the most electable. That's his selling point. And his gaffes are starting to make him seem like a doddering old man. And that's potentially lethal, because it undercuts the central premise of his campaign. Now, there were a couple in the last 2 weeks that were really pretty bad. One in particular, he was in, I think it was New Hampshire, or maybe he was in Vermont. I forget which one. He was in Vermont. No, he was in New Hampshire, and he goes, I love it here in Vermont. Oh, because people are looking at him asking, is he too old? And that's not necessarily ageism, okay? There's somewhat of a rational calculation involved in that, a reasonable calculation. It's something every family goes through. With your own grandfather, every single person here who has a grandfather went through this actual rational decision-making process, reasonable calculation where you sized up the things he said and you listened, and if he sounded too much like a crazy old man, you took the car keys away from him. Honestly, that's why this is potentially lethal. That's a really bad one. He was in New Hampshire, and he's like, I love it here in Vermont. And the tagline wrote itself, and I heard it maybe 7 times in the 2 days after he did it. Joe Biden doesn't even know what state he's in. You want him to run a country? That's a devastating tagline. And it's an easy one, writes itself. If he makes too many of those, he undercuts the central premise of his campaign, that he's more electable. You know, and it's not ageism. It's a rational calculation. If he seems too much like he's a doddering old man, you know, no one is going to look at him and go, he can actually take over the country. His main selling point against Donald Trump is, as far as I'm concerned, an excellent political rationale, an excellent political argument. I want to restore us to sanity. As I've said in the past, even if you're a supporter of Donald Trump and you like Donald Trump, even his own supporters sometimes get stressed out by his antics. Sometimes he tweets something at 3 a.m. and you're like, even if you like what he's doing, you're like, oh God, did he have to go there? Did he have to say that? Did he have to do something that not acceptable? That Trumpian? I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really bother me the way it bothers everybody else. I honestly get a kick out of most of it. I learned to write it off almost as soon as he became president and not take it seriously. But the idea of I'm going to be a dependable, stable hand on the country, and you won't have to, you know, wince every 10 days because I'm doing something really outlandish that stresses everybody out, it's actually a really, really, really good political argument. I think it's potentially Victoria's argument. As I said in the past, if Joe Biden was just slightly more, you know, if he seemed more competent, if you didn't look at him and go, is he actually capable? Which I do, which most people do, because he doesn't quite seem capable, honestly. I'd say he'd win pretty easily. But he doesn't. He doesn't exude competence. I still say he's the most likely Democratic nominee. There are ghosts in Bernie Sanders' closet that we have. There's skeletons in his closet that we haven't seen yet. There's a long history and a long history of outside of the mainstream of American politics, and that will come back to bite him should he actually make it to the national stage as a Democratic nominee. It will be front and center on Fox News 24 hours a day, round the clock. Promise. And it will resonate with the rest of the country because it's really out there. Some of the stuff's out there. But Joe Biden, the issue at hand, the gaffes have not reached critical mass. So far, they are still in the category of relatively benign, relatively harmless, but they're starting to add up. The other one, he didn't remember Obama's name. Again, that one I didn't really consider a gaffe. You know, I do stuff like that all the time. It's really easy for me to have a slip of the tongue and say something stupid, and yeah, everyone's like, yeah, we know, we're listening for this. Yeah, all right, shut up. So I don't consider that all that harmful. Where it's really starting to become potentially lethal is that if you factor it into his age and start going, hey, wait a minute. He seems like a doddering old man. Now that's, again, say this one more time, that's not ageism per se. That's a reasonable calculation that everybody makes in the real world in their own life. You know, Grandpa starts saying too many kooky things, you take the car keys away from him. It's just reality. It's just reality. It's a real calculation. So that's the only thing that I see really undercutting Joe Biden's electoral chances. Other than that, the configuration that I've been saying holds, looks like it's going to hold. If his gaffes don't add up to a 10% dip in the polls, you know, how Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren overtake him, I don't know. Any of their inroads is going to come at the expense of the other person, and I don't see anybody jumping ship from Bernie Sanders anytime soon. And I don't foresee him jumping out of the race. So how Elizabeth Warren grows her support, I'm not sure. It could happen. Again, I'm not 100% convinced Joe Biden will be the nominee. I just, somewhere in the realm of 55%, 60%. It's come down a lot. And the main reason it's come down is the old man gaffes. The old man gaffes will actually start to add up. So there you go, kids. That is my analysis thus far. And yeah, that's the story thus far. Democratic race for Democratic nominee. Amen.